Every club.
Every day.
The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Newcastle United are heading to Germany on the 10th of December for a Champions League trip that feels like a throwback and a step into the unknown at the same time. The last time these two met in the competition, I was there. Back in 2003, Newcastle did the double over Bayer Leverkusen, winning 3-1 home and away. Who can forget that Alan Shearer hat-trick at St James's Park? Certainly no, I never will. But this isn't Xabi Alonso's Leverkusen. It is definitely not the Leverkusen of 2003. There's no Stefan Keibling here, but there is Kasper Hjulmand and his side that have been blowing teams away since he took over. They have become one of the most predictable sides in Europe because while they can blow teams away, they are capable of just completely collapsing. In this podcast, we're going to be breaking down what makes Bayer Leverkusen so unpredictable and what that's going to mean for Newcastle United on the 10th of December. So, start with a bit of context. A club that has been ripped up and rebuilt faster than you can say Leverkusen. To understand why they're so volatile, you kind of have to go into the sheer chaos of their summer. And it's almost worse than ours. Xabi Alonso left for Real Madrid after delivering that legendary 2023-24 title-winning season. Erik ten Hag came in when the Champions League draw was announced. I was licking my lips, but he lasted, 3 competitive games and then was sacked. A Bundesliga record, actually. So at least he's got that to boast, I guess. And then on September 8th, Kasper Hulman, fresh off his spell with Denmark, walks into a dressing room that barely resembles the champions of yesteryear. And they've also lost Florian Wirtz and Jeremy Frimpong to Liverpool. It's all right, lads, we can relate on that one. Granit Xhaka to Sunderland, Pietro Hicampi to Arsenal, although that is on loan, Jonathan Tah to Bayern Munich, and Victor Boniface on loan to Werder Bremen, after the Nigerian striker picked up 49 goals in the last 3 seasons. I'm certainly glad we won't be seeing him in the Champions League this season. But that's just the headline names. They've lost a few others as well. And in their place comes an entirely new spine, some you might be more aware of than others, like sort of Mark Flecken and Gerald Quansah. Both have come from the Premier League. Like Bade, Malik Tillman, Aleix García, Ernest Poku, Christian Kofan, and Lucas Vazquez, with the final one coming from Real Madrid. The list is long of who they've brought in, but they do seem to have hit the ground running under the new manager. And this is the first big reason that Leverkusen do feel so unpredictable, because they're a top side that are still learning who they are in real time. And they're doing it in 3 different competitions. I'm sure people remember when Eddie Howe came in for Newcastle United. Very different side in those games against Manchester City and Leicester to what we were after the Leeds game, after the Everton game, etc. But for domestically, for Leverkusen, it is working. After 10 games, they sit 5th, 24 goals scored and 14 conceded. Goal difference of plus 10 and 6 wins. I certainly would like that for Newcastle in the Premier League right now. But in Europe, it's a bit more of a roller coaster for the German side. They've drawn with Copenhagen and PSV. They were smashed at home 7-2 by PSG. And then they did get a win 1-0 away at Benfica. Although Benfica didn't look great at St James's Park. Winning at the Stadio de Luís is a different kettle of fish entirely and has to be admired. But before you get into the tactics of this side, you can already tell it's one of huge talent, emotional swings because of all the massive turnover that they've had. And they are going to be very, very difficult to predict. But what we do know is they're going to try and attack Newcastle. Hjulmand's blueprint, I would probably describe it as structure with chaos built in and planned. I'm not sure how you can plan for chaos, but it's exactly what they do. He hasn't just torn up the blueprint like Erik ten Hag tried to. The base is very similar to what they had under Alonso. They still play with that 3-4-3, 3-2-4-1, whatever you want to call it. But the feel of the team is slightly different. So in possession, you'll see Quansah, Tapsoba and Bardi as the back three. Artur and Grimaldo flying high and wide as wing-backs. But the main thing is, after Granit Xhaka has left, Aleix García, signed from Girona, comes in, drops alongside the centre-backs almost as a back four, but he's like a Fabian Schär for Newcastle, where he can ping the ball and he can do anything with the ball. And then up top, they've got the proper number 9 and Patrik Schick. Newcastle fans will be well aware of him. We've been linked with him almost as much as what we were Bas Dost. Thankfully, not that much, but it was getting close for a time. And then 2 10s, which could be a mix of Enespoku, Maza, Hoffman, or Claudio Everett. I'll try that again. Echeverry. I've still butchered it. From Manchester City, these young Argentines messing up their names almost as frequently as Newcastle were getting attacked by Brentford. Sorry if I've brought that back for anyone. But the overall aim for Bayer Leverkusen, keep the ball and then suddenly change the tempo with an almost vertical tiki-taka style of play and just go a bit more direct with it towards the end. Play vertically through Garcia and then bounce it wide and attack through the wing backs. And that's where it really gets unpredictable, because the fluidity of Bayer Leverkusen is a real problem, and a lot of that comes from Álex Grimaldo. He isn't just a wing back. And Hjulmand has said himself he didn't realise how much Grimaldo actually contributed in midfield, to the point where he actually becomes an extra playmaker, which is, you'll see just how good Grimaldo is on the day, unfortunately, in my opinion. But he's already got 10 plus goals and assists from, let's be honest, he's not left wing back, he is more of a left midfielder. But still, he's got, I think, 12 goals and assists combined already this season. That's absolutely fantastic, and he'd be a joy to watch in any colours. I just wish it was ours. But Poco and Kofan can play wide and narrow, sprinting behind or coming short. And with that much pace on the wings, it sort of forces your fullbacks to push back, create almost a flat back four in front of the goalkeeper, which gives the likes of Garcia and Grimaldo just time on the ball. And with that time on the ball, they can pick you apart and, well, tear you apart. Garcia, he has a bit of a habit of turning up on the edge of the box and trying to shoot from distance. If you think of Granit Xhaka's role, even at our local rivals, he's kind of that quarterback with the rocket shot. An advanced John Joe Shelby, should we say. I don't think I'm doing anyone any displeasure there. But out of position, that's still... the shape collapses into a bit more of a 5-2-3. Wing-backs can drop deep. You've still got the 3 centre-backs there. In the front three will jump to press the ball. Hulman is obsessed, a bit like Eddie Howe, with counter-pressing the moment they lose the ball. Newcastle do it a little bit less in the present season than we have done in previous years. Leverkusen are just getting started with it. So hopefully, them being so active in winning it back, maybe it's not 100% clicked. I mean, it looks like it kind of has when you watch them play. Maybe not in the Champions League, but there's still a few mistakes that they make. And with them being so compact and brave high up the pitch, Newcastle can then cause them issues. It can suffocate teams. We've seen that enough. Frankfurt is a great example. They had I think it's 2 shots on target in Hjulmand's debut. And if you can do that against a team like Frankfurt, who are known for getting shots away, known for getting goals away, I know they lost Ekatike and a few others. But Leverkusen's high press was working from the moment he walked in the door. But when it does fail, it can all fall apart in about 5 minutes. As we saw PSG. I mean, PSG are a team unlike any other. And when your tactics do fail, they do tend to punish you. 1 or 2 bad turnovers in the structure of Leverkusen's shape can get ripped apart, leading to wild scorelines like that. You'll notice there are some games where they do end up conceding 2 or 3 relatively regularly, because they're built for control, but they live on the edge. One bad pass, one mistimed press, should I say, and the game explodes. So, who are the key characters in the chaos? As I mentioned, Aleix García, he's the metronome with a trigger finger. If you're watching this, remember the name. He's the man that made Girona tick. Now he's gone. They've gone from Champions League to relegation candidates. And while he isn't the only reason, he was usually important to that side. He's replaced Xhaka almost perfectly. And when Bayern's coach and side team did a little preview on it, they literally spoke about nullifying Aleix García. And when Bayern realise that's the man you need to keep quiet, I think Newcastle know it as well. But he likes to drop deep, switches the ball out to the fullbacks, and has a seriously good shot on him. But Newcastle's first line of pressure is going to be what stops them, if anything. Wissa or Voltemada. You would hope Wissa for this one, because I think we do need to press a bit more extravagantly. Voltemada is not brilliant with the press. He's brilliant at a lot of things. The press isn't one of them. Gordon and Murphy will need to have perfect attitudes, because they're going to be doing a lot of running off the ball. And they'll spend most of the night trying to cut passing lanes off. But if he does get time and he does get space on the ball, it could be really, really dangerous for Newcastle. And the likes of Guimaraes and Tonali will have to be absolutely perfect in cutting out those balls as well. And then if you keep Garcia quiet, there's obviously Grimaldo, who I mentioned. They call him a fullback, they call him a wingback, they call him a playmaker, they call him a goal scorer, they call him a perfect player in some ways. He is the most important player of this system without a shadow of a doubt. And Leverkusen are tweaking their tactic every single week to try and get him on the ball more. Sometimes he's hugging the touchline like a wingback. Sometimes he's an extra number 10. And sometimes he's arriving late at the back post to smash one in like a number 9. It's a real tactical question of Newcastle. And that's before you get to, do you play Trippier or Tino? My personal preference would be Tino if he is fit, but Trippier's experience could prove to be really useful. But tactically, do you have your right back step out to aggressively close him down and keep the space tight? Or do you have a wide midfielder like a Tonali or a Joe Linton? More than likely Joe Linton, because it is on Leverkusen's left-hand side. Have them stay a little bit deeper and actually work the space. But if you get that matchup wrong, Grimaldo can dominate, and that's, again, another player that can cause you a lot of problems. And then the other player that's a standout, I mentioned him earlier, Patrik Schick. We all know about him, and the defenders that we have, thankfully, will know all too well what it's like facing a clinical striker, because we've had years of Alexander Isak in training, and then Nick Voltemade has offered a completely different prospect for our centre-backs in training. I know Malik Chow won't have dealt with Isak particularly long, if at all, because who knows if Isak decided to turn up for training. But Voltemade gives a really unique style of play, and Schick is probably one of the closest in football to him. He can turn a half chance into a goal. He's actually brilliant on the ball for his size as well, and he's already joint top goal scorer for Leverkusen this season. He got the winner at Benfica, and he's very, very good at doing what he did against Benfica, sniffing out that defensive mistake and looping a header in. Newcastle centre-backs are going to have to basically deal with Schick pinning them on the last line. Poku or Kofan probably spinning off into the channels, and then Garcia or Grimaldo either running beyond or just sitting deeper to try and control the game. Whatever happens, it's messy, it's constant movement, but it only takes one lapse for them to concede a goal. So we won't just be planning for that one movement. We'll be planning for 5 or 6 different game plans. And that's probably a negative thing with a number of games that are coming up in such a short span. If you have 7 days to prepare for a Leverkusen, it's probably a lot easier. But 3 days, it's very difficult. For all the praise, though, they aren't complete. They're not a perfect machine just yet. The unpredictability cuts both ways. Got a few examples as well. The first is the goals that they concede. 14 and 10 league games, plus a 7-goal hammering by PSG in Europe. That is a lot for a side that controls games. And there's a few patterns that Newcastle will actually be able to target. And the first of that is turnovers in those central areas. One thing Newcastle have struggled with this season is teams being able just to play straight through the middle. Leverkusen will try and do that as well. But if Garcia or one of the 10s is robbed, the wing backs are so high, the centre backs are spread, there's space and abundance to attack. And all you have to do is look at that PSG game. They scored multiple times by just going straight through Leverkusen. And I'm not saying Newcastle have the talent of Paris Saint-Germain, because we do not. But there is talent there that can capitalise. Set pieces as well. You'd think with Jarell Quansah and Tapsoba, they'd be very, very good in the air. But the fact is, Bayer Leverkusen have conceded more set pieces than goals from open play in the Bundesliga this season, 5-4. So it does leave you thinking. Even Patrik Schick, by the way, aerial threat as well. They've got a lot of aerial presence, but when it comes to defending set plays, they're not fantastic at all. So that is somewhere where Newcastle can definitely hurt them with maybe a Dan Burn, just like we did at Athletic Club. Although I don't think Bayer Leverkusen are going to put a 5'8" player on them. That's just it's just my gut instinct, really. Can't see what that is. But game management is the third. That cup tie that they had against Paderborn is the perfect example. They had the man advantage. They were leading 1-0, and yet they were still dragged to extra time, and they were minutes away from being knocked out of the DFB Pokal before they rescued it with goals in the 120th minute. Add to that, there was a really long list of injuries for the autumn. Palacios, Nathan Tella, Tape, Vasquez, Fernandez, Tillman. And when you get a team that constantly has to shift lineups and rhythms, some of those players are edging back towards fitness. Vasquez and Nathan Tella returned to training recently, but stability isn't there. Think of Newcastle United during our first Champions League season, back where we just got injury after injury after injury. That is sort of what Leverkusen are dealing with. It's not on the same scale, but Newcastle are still well aware of what Bayer Leverkusen are doing up against, should I say, right now. So we spoke about Leverkusen. How does that clash with Newcastle? We're flying in Europe, not so much in the league. In Europe, obviously, we still have Marseille to play before we take on Leverkusen. It's almost a free hit, given the last 3 games, a 4-0 at Union Saint-Gilloise, 3 against Benfica, 2 against Athletic Club. I'd bite your hand off for a 1-0. We've been very organised, aggressive in pressing in certain areas. We're happy to sit a little bit deeper, but when we get to those closed, compact spaces, we do like to press where we can, and we're very aggressive with it. And we're happy to play at that Premier League tempo for 90 minutes. It sets up a bit of a fascinating contest, really, because Leverkusen are going to want the ball. They're going to want to dictate. They're going to want to pin Newcastle in. But we'll let them have the ball. We know that we'll have Anthony Gordon, hopefully, if he's fit, or Anthony Elanga, Harvey Barnes, Jacob Murphy, Johan Wissa even, all there on the counter-attack. Tonali and Joe Linton aren't slow in getting forward from midfield either. So Newcastle can really hit Leverkusen on the counter-attack. But then if Newcastle try and hit that counter-attack and they fail, like we have seen a number of times this season trying to get out and failing, Leverkusen could absolutely rip Newcastle apart. And if it becomes an end-to-end game, it's going to be fascinating. And I think whoever manages to get better control of that midfield, I'm not talking possession, it's because you can have control of a game without having too much possession, will win the game. It'll be very much down to Guimaraes and Tonali, whether they can close down Garcia and stop him having that much control of the game. And then I think when you look at it as well, there's the wider Champions League picture of, we're trying to lock that top seeding spot. We're sitting 6th. As this goes out, probably drop after the Marseille away game, let's be honest. But with PSV at home after this game, and we know that 16 points is normally enough, we only need 7 in those remaining 4 games. if you get a point against Marseille, that is 6 with PSV coming up. This is a brilliant chance to, secure a spot in that top 8. And I think with that, we know we've got PSG on the final day. We know it's very unlikely that we finish in that top 8. But the chance to have one less game in the calendar at a very crucial time of the year is going to be a massive motivating factor for Eddie Howe. Leverkusen, on the other hand, they do have just one win in 4. They need every point they can get at the minute to make sure they reach the knockouts. 11 points should be enough, I think, to guarantee the playoff round. And Leverkusen have Manchester City when Newcastle play Marseille, but they finish off the campaign with Olympiacos and Villarreal. So I think they'll know that they'll want to have a spot secure before they play Villarreal. So they'll not want to go into that game thinking we need a positive result, otherwise we're out the Champions League. So they know they need to win here, and it could be a very, very interesting game because of that. Because Newcastle don't need the win; they'll be happy to sit for a draw. Leverkusen need those 3 points. Well, what will happen when the two sides face off? I've given my thoughts. We'll have a match preview close at the time, and to make sure you don't miss that one, or tomorrow's match preview of the Manchester City game by Ian, Nick and Joe. Make sure to subscribe, turn on notifications, like the video and all that jazz. I've been Michael Grahamso. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in a bit.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.